Commodato was a handsome young nobleman in the retinue of the Prince of Noto. He was rich and he was kind, he was charming, and everybody loved him. One day his prince called him and said to him solemnly, "Are you loyal and brave?" Tomodato answered, "You know I am, my lord." Said the prince, "Can I send you on a dangerous mission of the greatest importance and trust you as I would trust myself?" And Tomodato answered, "You can, my lord." "Then carry this message to the Prince of Diengo," said his prince, "and do not spur your horse in getting there. Do not stop for rain or snow. Do not skirt the mountains, but ride across them. Die if you must, but do not reveal my message to a soul. Above all else, look no young woman in the eye until my message is delivered safely." Thus spoke the prince. "I will deliver your message and will travel as you direct me," said Tomodato. And without saying farewell to his friends, he took horse and set out upon the journey. He did not spur his horse, and he rode up upon the sides of the mountains to shorten his way. He passed safely through the country of enemies. After 3 days he rode in the autumn rains, which fell upon him and his horse like torrents. The horse began to slip and founder in the mud. The sky was darkened by night. Familiar landmarks were washed away or hidden in the dark. The wind moaned in the trees, and Tomodato was lost. At last the horse could go no farther, so Tomodato alighted and led him by the bridle through the wild, dark country. He was about to lie down in despair and was sure he would perish without delivering his message, when the wind blew an opening in the clouds. The moon shone through, and off upon a nearby hill Tomodato saw a peasant's thatched cottage with 3 weeping willows before it. "The gods be thanked," said he, and with his weary horse he struggled up the hill. He threw his horse's reins over a branch of one of the 3 willows and knocked at the door. An old woman, purely dressed but very neat, came to the door. "Good sir," she said, "who are you, and what are you doing out on such a night?" "I am a weary traveller," said Tomodato, "in the service of the Prince of Noto. I beg for your shelter and for food. My horse and I are about to drop with weariness." As he said this, Tomodato staggered a little and held on to the side post of the door. His clothes were streaming with water. Come in, good young sir," said the woman, "and we will take care of you. As for your horse, I see that you have already turned him over to my daughter." Tomodato turned in surprise. There, out in the dim moonlight, he saw a wild-looking young girl with his horse's reins over one arm. Her hair and her clothes were blowing in the wind. He wondered how she had come there, but he followed the old woman to the fire where her good husband sat. Then they gave him dry clothes and hot wine and set about cooking his supper. While he was eating, the daughter of the house came in quietly, retired behind a screen, and appeared again with a simple robe of blue homespun cotton. Her hair was freshly combed and fell in great smooth folds to her very knees. She was slender and graceful, and perhaps 16 years old. Tomodato was delighted with her beauty, which was beyond that of any maiden he had ever seen. She served him his wine, holding back the hanging tresses of her hair. Then she looked at him, and he, forgetting his promise to the prince, looked her full in the eyes. "Sweet maiden," he said, "what is your name?" "They call me the Green Willow," she replied. "I think that is the loveliest name on earth," said he, and he looked into her eyes for a long time, so that she blushed from forehead to throat. Although she smiled, tears came into the corners of her eyes. Ah, the forgetful messenger of the Prince of Noto. Then Tomodatta made up this little poem, which he recited to Green Willow. Long-haired maiden, do you blush? Or is it the first rose light of dawn, bidding me be off upon my lonely journey? For a moment she was still, then she replied with this little poem. I cannot stop the rosy dawn, but see, with my sleeve I hide it from your eyes. Oh, Green Willow, my sweet Green Willow, Tomodatta stepped aside and shook himself as though waking from a dream. That night he could not sleep. With all his heart he wished to stay with the Green Willow, for he was sick with love. But he could not forget his oath of loyalty and his promise to the Prince of Noto. So before dawn he crept quietly out of the door, so as not to wake the other sleepers, only leaving a purse of money to pay the poor family for their hospitality. He saddled his horse in the early mist, and like shadows horse and rider passed down the hill and were on their way. When the sunlight streamed across his saddle bow, oh, Green Willow, he sighed, and at noontide it was Green Willow, and Green Willow, sweet Green Willow, when the twilight fell. That night he lay in a deserted shrine, and the place was so holy that in spite of all he slept from midnight till the dawn. Then he arose to wash himself in a cold stream that flowed nearby, so as to go refreshed on his journey. But he was stopped upon the shrine's threshold. There lay the Green Willow upon the ground, face downwards, a slender thing with her black hair flung about her. She lifted a hand and held Tomodatta by the sleeve. my lord, she said, and fell to sobbing. He took her in his arms without a word, and set her on his horse before him, and together they rode the livelong day. They cared little of the road they went, for all the while they looked into each other's eyes. The heat and the cold were nothing to them. They felt not the sun nor the rain. Of truth or falsehood they thought nothing at all, nor of a daughter's duty to her parents, nor of the message of the Prince of Noto. They knew but the one thing, alas, for the ways of love. At last they came to an unknown city where they stayed. Tomodatta carried gold and jewels in his girdle, so they found a house built of white wood, spread with sweet white mats. In every dim room could be heard the sound of the guarding waterfall, and the swallows' shadows flew across the paper lattice. Here they dwelt 3 years of happy days, and for Tomodatta and the Green Willow, the years were like garlands of sweet flowers. In the autumn of the 3rd year, it chanced that they went into the garden at dusk to see the round moon rise, and as they watched, the Green Willow began to shake and shiver. "My dear," said Tomodatta, "we shake and shiver, and it is no wonder. The night wind is chill. Come in," and he put his arm around her. At this she gave a long and pitiful cry, very loud and full of agony. When she had uttered the cry, she dropped her head upon her lover's breast. "Tomodatta," she whispered, "say a prayer for me, I die." Then she said, the tree, they have cut down my tree. Remember the Green Willow." With that she slipped, as it seemed, from his arms to his feet, and he, kneeling upon the ground, found there only the green willow's silken garments, bright coloured, warm and sweet, and her straw sandals, scarlet thronged. In after years, when Tomadatta was a holy man, he used to travel from shrine to shrine, painfully upon his feet, and so acquired much merit. Once at dawn he found himself upon a lonely moor. On his right hand he beheld a little hill, and on it the sad ruins of a poor thatched cottage. The door swung to and fro with broken latch and creaking hinge. Before it stood 3 old stumps of willow trees that had long since been cut down. Tomadatta stood for a long time still and silent. Then he recited gently to himself, "Long-haired maiden, do you blush? Or is it the first rose light of dawn bidding me off upon my lonely journey?" Ah, foolish poem, the gods forgive me. I should have recited the Holy Sutra for the dead, said Tomadatta.